Officer Maketta Watson. I'm a native Washingtonian who started my education in DC public schools. As a young woman growing up in the district, I have always had countless numbers of female role models to look up to, including my mom, Maria. These women were real for me because they lived in the same city I lived in. They walked the same streets I did. Some of them even attended the same schools. Through the backing of Maria and my dad, John, family and friends, after high school, I went away to college. But DC still remained in my heart, so I returned after I graduated and taught in DC public schools briefly. I was young and still felt I had not found my calling. I knew I enjoyed working with our youth, but I wanted to do more for the community. There was an officer who would come to our school weekly who saw that I had more to give, but I needed a different platform to serve the public. They suggested I look into joining the Metropolitan Police Department. Almost 19 years later, I look back and I know I made the best decision for my career on the day that I accepted my offer to join MPD.
All right. Woohoo!
I hope that young women in our city look to me and the women around me and see the same thing I did growing up. A group of strong, resilient, empowering women who they can aspire to be. We represent many positions in the department. We are public information officers. We are mountain bike officers. We are motor officers. We are ERT negotiators. We are harbor officers. We are patrol officers. We are sergeants, lieutenants, captains, inspectors, commanders, and assistant chiefs. And with 30 by 30 pledge, we will continue to grow and allow generations after us to be even more. It is my honor and privilege to introduce a female role model to many, Honorable Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Thank you, Officer. Thank you. Let's give Officer Watson and all the women of MPD a big round of applause. The men too, Chief. The men too. I am thrilled to be here with Chief Contee, Assistant Chief Kane, all of our MPD leadership, members of the Metropolitan Police Department, to announce a very important initiative in DC government and the Metropolitan Police Department during Women's History Month, Director Porter. We are here to announce MPD's commitment to the 30 by 30 pledge. 30 by 30 is a nationwide initiative focused on bringing more women into policing. Chief Contee will talk to you about the specifics of the pledge and his plans to hire a chief equity officer for MPD. But I want to start by saying and recognizing the women of MPD for the rock stars and role models that they are. Give them a big round of applause. We are very proud of our focus in DC on hiring our own. That means our Washingtonians. You heard from Officer Watson, her story. You know Chief Contee's story. And that's echoed by so many people that protect and serve us each day. It's also one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on the MPD Cadet Corps program, because it's this program that is helping us attract and retain female officers. Let me give you a stat. The current cadet class is 47% women. The current recruit class is 30% women. And the last stat I want to give you, and at the end of last year, 52% of our recruit class were all DC natives. So in terms of representation, we feel very good about the path that we are on, but we also know that we have to be intentional about getting there. You will remember that I sent to the council a piece of legislation that will expand the eligibility for the cadet program so that more DC residents can become police officers. And we are very, very focused on making sure that DC residents are applying for jobs all over DC government. You may not know this, but we have the most openings on our DC government websites to hire people than we've had in a very long time. And so on March 16th and 17th, we will be hosting a hiring fair. Please go to Mur.dc.gov to get registered, find out more about the positions available, and have the opportunity to get hired on the spot. So once again, I want to thank all of the members of the Metropolitan Police Department. I want to thank members of the public who have been so supportive of our department and making sure that we have the police resources that we need. I also want to recognize how committed we are to the health and wellness of our officers and the ability for women to thrive in the Metropolitan Police Department. So with that, I want to turn it over to Chief Contee, who will tell us more about the programs we're launching today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Today, I'm proud to join 150 law enforcement agencies across the country in signing the 30 by 30 pledge. We're pledging to increase the number of female police officers and continue to make MPD the most equitable agency for women in the law enforcement field. Currently, women make up only 12% of sworn officers and 3% of police leadership in the United States, and that number is far, far too low. I am proud to say that at MPD, we have over 23% of our sworn officers who are women and thus far exceed the national average. However, I think it's important to note that we can still do better. While we are above the national average for women in law enforcement, I want us to continue on this trajectory. We will continue to maintain and increase this number as we take steps on hiring the best and brightest women to represent MPD and our city. As part of the pledge, MPD has agreed to take measures to increase the representation of women in all ranks of law enforcement, ensure that our policies and procedures are free of all bias, promote equitable hiring, retention, and promotion of women officers, and ensure that our culture is inclusive, respectfully, and supportive of women in all ranks and roles of law enforcement. Currently, 21% of candidates who are seeking to rise to the rank of lieutenant are females, and 26% of candidates who are seeking to rise to the rank of captain are females. We want our department to be representative of the communities we serve, and we do that in many ways currently. Over 65% of our officers come from minority backgrounds, and our officers speak over 30 distinct languages from all around the world. I always say this is an international city. We have an international police department that represents an international city. This represents all of America right here in the Metropolitan Police Department. However, as much as we mirror our community racially and linguistically, MPD still has work to do to bring a balance to the gender demographics of our profession and our agency. While MPD is already setting the trend, I am excited about the future efforts to expand diversity of our department in every way. Additionally, as the mayor mentioned, we are seeking to hire a chief equity officer for the department. I have already publicly committed to that I intend to hire a woman to fulfill that role, who will act as an ombudsman and provide strategic guidance for the work MPD is doing to ensure equity and inclusion. I'm also asking from the community members who are watching to encourage the women in your life that are eligible to apply to the department and answer the call. You can make a difference and positive impact in in the D.C. community and at the Metropolitan Police Department. I applaud the many agencies that have made their commitment to the 30 by 30 initiative and want our community to see MPD as a reflection of themselves. At this time, I want to invite Assistant Chief Morgan Kane, MPD's Technical and Analytical Services Bureau Chief, to share some more about her journey on MPD.
Short, huh? Good morning. Mayor Bowser, Chief Contee, colleagues, and friends, good morning again. I am Morgan Kane, and I am an Assistant Chief of Police with the Metropolitan Police Department. The significance of those words, I am an Assistant Chief of Police, is not lost on me, and I remain humbled and honored by our Chief's confidence in appointing me to this position. I am proud to serve our city as a member of our talented MPD executive staff, a diverse team that reflects our city and our agency. We appreciate you being here as we announce this important initiative for our department, our city, and all women in law enforcement. The district is my home. I am raising my 7-year-old son here, and he attends DC public schools. So our work is personal for me. Being successful as an agency and forging relationships with the community we serve is not just my job, it is a passion that directly impacts my family. This is something I share with many of my colleagues who are equally invested. My 23 years of service to the district have been filled with opportunities and experiences I never could have imagined as a young police recruit in 1998. Today, I'd like to share a portion of my MPD journey with you and emphasize why the 30 by 30 initiative is so important. I also like to speak directly to the women watching this who may be considering careers in policing. My story is but one of many. However, I can say without hesitation that MPD provides unrivaled opportunities for its members in this fulfilling profession. The women that came before me, and now my colleagues and I, have blazed the trail for women in policing, and we stand ready to welcome you into the MPD. After graduating from Marymount University, I realized how much I wanted to be a part of law enforcement. So I began assessing local police departments and federal agencies to determine which I would apply and which I would hope to join. I wasn't just looking for a job. I was very deliberate in this process, searching for the right fit with an agency that I knew would provide me the support to grow in a traditionally male-dominated profession. I wanted to join an organization where I saw people that looked like me in patrol cars and in leadership positions. I wanted to come to a place that welcomed women and other underrepresented groups at all levels of the organization. I wanted to master the craft of policing and be a leader too someday. My search didn't take me long. I was drawn to MPD by its diversity, the clear opportunities that I saw for women, and the excitement that I felt in this vibrant city. I applied, was accepted, and began academy training near the end of 1998. I came in very focused and determined to succeed, and because of that, I graduated as the academic award winner for my class. Following recruit training, I was assigned to the 1st District, an area I would return to 17 years later as the district commander. I took pride in learning how to patrol because patrol operations are the backbone of every police department, and because I found myself with a strong female master patrol officer. MPO Goldie Easterlin served as my training officer, and she provided me with the foundation that to this very day I lean on to be successful in my current position. With her guidance, I learned how to run a scout car and answer calls, but also how to get out of the car, walk in the community, and build meaningful connections with residents. She was the epitome of professionalism, and I was lucky to know her. She was my first example of what a policewoman should be. But it wasn't just my MPO. It was all of my patrol partners, both men and women, that supported and mentored me as I learned to police. This network of support was something I experienced throughout my entire career from a group of people who took genuine interest in my development. They encouraged me to broaden my knowledge base, seek positions in other units, and continue my education. It was such an exciting time, and I was so happy to be here. During my career, I've been fortunate to earn a master's degree in public administration and to attend and complete the Naval Postgraduate School's Executive Leadership Program. Our department invests in its members and encourages everyone to explore opportunities for personal and professional growth. We incentivize education and help with new school bills and old loan payoffs, and we are intentional in putting members in positions that match their skill set, their interests, and their background.
Early on, there were a few positions that I applied for, interviewed for, and was selected for. Among them, a position in research and writing department policies and directives in the former Office of Organizational Development. Many of the policies I helped create still govern agency operations today. Knowing that advancement for women was possible and expected, I tested for and was promoted to sergeant in 2004. I returned to patrol as a supervisor and loved every minute of it. After a few other assignments in 2006, I applied and was selected for a position in the newly created Office of Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. This was a new division established to address emerging threats in the post-9/11 world. It would later evolve into our present-day Homeland Security Bureau. MPD is always on the world stage, and the work we did in this office laid the foundation for what exists today. Policies, training, strategies, and leadership techniques that allow us to pull off presidential inaugurations, manage daily protests, and quite literally save our democracy when called upon. Did I mention that the person, this visionary leader that created an internationally respected office, was a woman? Yes, the person sitting at the head of that table will become another one of my mentors and go on to be named MPD's first female chief of police. I had the pleasure of interacting with, admiring, and seeking guidance from many great female officers, sergeants, and lieutenants to this point. And now I had the example of a rising Kathy Lanier to learn from. I looked up to these women and wanted to emulate what I saw. Don't get me wrong. The work wasn't easy. Every day wasn't great. It was new for me. It was challenging and unfamiliar, and that can be difficult. I wanted to contribute and be successful, and the pressure was real. I realized it was okay to be challenged and uncomfortable at times. That's how we grow. My career was starting to take off in a direction I dreamed. The next big milestone in my career came when I was promoted to lieutenant in 2007 and came into the management ranks. I became what is known as a white shirt. Captain and inspector ranks followed, and I spent several of those years on the chief's staff. In that moment, I don't think I realized just how remarkable that was. The first female police chief in the nation's capital, and I was part of the team, trusted to interact with the council, residents, mayors, federal partners, and so many more on her behalf in the agency. That could not have happened. I would not have been in a position to be called upon by the chief if I hadn't had all those prior opportunities to demonstrate my skills in other areas. It's only possible for me to stand before you today as an assistant chief because MPD has always and will always value the contributions of women to our agency. In 2016, I was promoted to be the commander of the 1st District, a position I would hold for nearly 5 years. My career began in 1D. I live in 1D. My son goes to school in 1D. So as I mentioned before, every decision, whether tactical, strategic, community-based, or personnel-related, impacts my community, a community that I love in a city that I cherish. My other assignments prepared me for this command, but running a district is where the rubber met the road. It was the challenge and an honor of a lifetime, but probably one of the most demanding in policing as a whole. Inspiring women are not unique to MPD. As we look around in 2022, strong, intelligent, capable women that look like me lead police departments in major cities around the nation, in New York, Philadelphia, Phoenix, and Memphis. This is no longer the exception or something that raises eyebrows. The women that came before us proved our value in law enforcement. While I've had a rewarding career, the job has not been without its challenges. But as I said before, getting out of your comfort zone and being challenged makes you grow. It's a good thing. To the future women of our profession, trust me when I tell you that your work ethic will be recognized and propel you to great things. Stay focused. For policing to continue evolving to meet the needs of our community, greater representation of women in our ranks is essential. Research and our own experiences tell us that the advancement of women officers is associated with improved outcomes for both police agencies and the communities we serve. With our commitment to 30 by 30, MPD is promising to continue the good work we have done for years. We will increase the representation of women in all ranks, continue to ensure that our policies and procedures are free of bias, promote equitable hiring, retention, and the promotion of women, and ensure that our culture is inclusive, respectful, and supportive of all members, as Chief Contee has already told you. For those of you considering this profession, come and join us on a ride-along or come shadow me or one of our other executives to see what this agency has to offer. Believe me when I tell you, we are ready to welcome you with open arms, support your professional and your personal growth, and help you transform the future of our city and profession. There are several women in this agency that share stories of support and mentorship like mine, and the promise we made to our mentors, the men and women who helped propel our careers, is this: extend your hand back, bring folks along with you, and invest in them, because they are the future of our agency and the community. Thank you for joining us today. I'll turn it back over to Mayor Bowser.
Thank you, Chief. I live in 1D. My kid goes to school in 1D. I am 1D. I like it. I like it. So I want to thank you, Chief Kane, for those words and talking about your MPD journey and our commitment to making MPD the most diverse department anywhere in the country. We're already ahead of most, but we know there's more to do. So with that, we'll take a few questions on topic. Any questions? Yes. Yep.
Hi, Chief.
Hi.
You portrayed a very interesting and long and fulfilling career here. It differs markedly from what some of the officers who have filed the lawsuit feel, including one of your colleagues standing right behind you. How is your trajectory different than theirs, and have you ever experienced anything like they have described?
So what I can say, and anyone that knows me knows that I don't shy away from difficult conversations or discussions, right? It is under litigation, so I certainly cannot, I'm not at liberty to speak freely on it. What I can say is that I would never dismiss someone's lived experience or their personal story. But what I can tell you is that the allegations as presented, that's just not my story. I shared a small portion of what my story is with you here today. And I know that there are many women that share similar experiences to mine coming up through the ranks and working for MPD. Now, that's not to say there haven't been difficult days, difficult assignments, difficult bosses, because there certainly has. But what I will say is that in 2022, this is it is a different agency than when I came on even in 1998. It has evolved, it has grown. The chief has already laid out and the mayor has laid out some of the initiatives and some of the things that we're doing, the great things that we're doing inside of MPD. But what I can tell you is that there will come a time and a space and a place to answer the allegations, where the agency will answer the allegations, and folks will be able to tell their lived experiences and their stories. That day will come, but it just won't be today. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Mark.
I'm wondering if we could ask Chief Dickerson if she would recommend this as a career path for young women.
Chief Dickerson can certainly talk about the topics of the day.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
So Chief, I appreciate you can't talk about the lawsuit, but given the lawsuit, do you recommend this as a career path for young women, MPD?
Oh, absolutely. The Metropolitan Police Department Cadet Program and MPD changed the trajectory of my life. I will be forever grateful. It took me from a path of hopelessness to resilience. So I serve this community with grit and grace and compassion and empathy. So I support the 30 by 30 initiative. Women are needed in this profession to help it evolve. Thank you, Mark, for asking the question.
Thanks, Chief. Yes.
I just wanted to follow up about the lawsuit. One of the sort of major claims in the lawsuit is that there's a systemic issue here, and some of that has to do with how the EEO handles complaints. So I wanted to ask if this hiring push is accompanied by any systemic changes other than the hiring of the chief equity officer.
As I said, as has been said, we're not going to address any specifics about the lawsuit. We are, of course, committed to a department where everyone can thrive. And everything about our leadership, this chief and mine, requires every department, including MPD, and in some cases especially MPD, that we have an environment that no matter what your background is, you can thrive. And that's what our commitment is.
Mayor, at a forum on Saturday, when asked if you supported hiring more police officers, you said yes. Two of the people at that forum who are council members said no. In this initiative program, are you going to be asking the council to hire more police officers, not just more women police officers?
Yes, I am. Well, as I have done before, as recently as last summer, we have let the council know what we need. Listen, our job, the chief's job, is to tell me and the council and the people of the District of Columbia what it's going to take to keep us safe. The MPD is part of that. And we have seen, unfortunately, our ranks dwindle to just under 3,500 because of 2 years of not hiring. We cannot endure another year of not hiring. So the budget that I will present to the council will put us on the path to the number of officers that we need to certainly deal with the spike in crime that we're having, which we're all going to work to drive down, but also everyday calls that come in. No resident of Washington, D.C. Wants to wait a second longer for MPD to respond when they have an emergency. And having too few officers will put that in that position. So yes, we have a 30 by 30 pledge. We have an MPD cadet DC resident pledge, and we have a get out of the car. What Kane say? Get out of the car, talk to people, get on mountain bikes pledge. Right, Chief? Because when we're hiring, I also want the chief to focus. I also sent this to the council, and I want them to fund it this year, is making sure we're providing electric bikes for our officers that will put them closer to the people, but still allow them to get to a scene when they have a call. Those are going to be critically important. But the chief can tell you exactly where we are with officers and why it's so important that we fund what the department needs. In addition to all of the things that we're doing for non-law enforcement interventions. Just last year alone, over $58 million worth of investments.
If I could follow up, Chief, when you were appointed Chief, nominated Chief, the Council unanimously approved your selection as Chief. They say great things about you, but they have not supported your call for more police. Why not?
Well, my call is going to remain what it is, because that's what I'm hearing as I move about, not just through this agency and assess the things that we're doing. Like now, we still have to keep the city safe. We still have to make sure. We still have to make. All right. How about that, Tom? Is that better? Okay. We still have to make sure that our city is safe. We still have to make sure that First Amendment assemblies are able to happen in the District of Columbia. We still have to make sure that the State of the Union goes off without a hitch in the District of Columbia. We have a war going on in Ukraine right now, and there are peaceful First Amendment assembly that's happening, and the Metropolitan Police Department are a part of all of those things. And we have to do all of those things well. Well, in order for us to do all of those things well, we need the number of police officers that we need to be able to do them well. And right now, we're taxing our officers. As the mayor mentioned earlier last year, when we started seeing spikes in crime, she approved us to use whatever overtime was needed. But that's a stopgap. That's a temporary stopgap in order for us to see the successes that we need to see in community. So I am hopeful that as the mayor submits a new budget, that all those who are empowered with making those decisions, Tom, will make the right decision to support what it is MPD needs.
If I could just follow up, what do the council members say to you that they don't go along with the chief that they say they support? What do they say to you?
Well, I hear quite frankly, well, you'd have to ask them that. But what I hear is that there has to be police and there has to be prevention. I think that there has to be both things. I agree with both of those. Maybe we disagree on how many. But again, when we talk about the number of police officers that we need, I look at things like where are we on crime? Where are we on our response time to calls for service? Those are the things that I look at. And when I start to see upticks in crime, when I start to see upticks in response time to calls for service, that is directly attributed to our police officers and where we are right now, where we are as our staffing levels. The mayor mentioned, this is the lowest that our police department has been in over 20 years. And I don't think that now is the time where we want to see a reduction in force. I have not been to one community, as I've traversed the city, I have not been to one community where residents have said, hey, chief, I don't want to see any more police in my block. That has not been my experience. Maybe others have experienced that, but it has not been my experience, Tom. Mark?
I think this is actually for Mayor. Mayor, how many officers are you putting in your budget for funding for? Can you tell us the exact number of sworn right now that you say we're at the lowest, and then what you want to get to, what your vision is?
3512. We want to get to 4,000. We won't be able to do it in a single year. We likely won't be able to do it in a few years, but we're going to put ourselves on the path. This is why you can't make up for 2 years of hiring or not hiring in one fell swoop. We experience we have a lot of personnel at MPD, and these good-looking young people here, they can retire after 25 years of service. Even this young Kane here. So we are always having to hire because about 300 of our people can either retire or they'll move on to do something else every single year. So we can go down every single year by about 300. So we're always fighting that to hire enough safely, because we want the best of the best. So we have to be able to hire enough safely while addressing that 300. Okay, so you can do the math. So if I lost 300 and I wasn't able to hire, that means I went down I could have lost up to 600 people in 2 years. So it's going to take, we don't typically hire more than 300 a year safely to go through our classes, recruit the right people. So it's going to take several years to make up for that. Another aspect of that work is to reduce the number who decide to retire or move on to another department. That's why in the course of my tenure, you have seen me invest in retention programs, from signing bonuses to loan repayment to all of the professional services and wellness programs that you have mentioned. And that's what we will continue to do.
A couple of off topics for the chief.
Yep.
Chief Contee, if you could just update us on everybody's favorite topic of the truck convoy. And then also on the 18th Street murder, if there's any new developments in that.
So with respect to the truck convoy, we know that they departed Hagerstown. A group departed Hagerstown probably about an hour ago, en route to the area of the DC area, looking at the Beltway. Anything is on the table. We are prepared for whatever route they decide to take, and again, people can peacefully express their First Amendment freedoms in the District of Columbia, but there are just certain things that we're not going to tolerate here in the city. So we're monitoring that very closely and working very closely with our law enforcement partners in the region. Respect to the 18th Street murder, we are working on that case, and we're making excellent progress on the case, Mark, and I'm hopeful that very soon we'll be able to speak more to the community about that case and what we've learned so far.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we are now going to be escorted by one of our officers on their patrol here, which is why we're meeting. And I think we're meeting here, right? Jackie? Okay, thank you. Folks want to take a picture? Okay.
All of you.